All right, let's jump right into this explainer by confronting a massive, honestly kind of humorous, contradiction regarding one of the East's most profound thinkers, Rumi. For centuries, he's been globally celebrated as this mystic poet, a total master of matters of the heart. But if you look at his writings through an academic lens, you immediately hit a brick wall. Here is a guy who authored some of the most foundational existential thought in human history, yet on the surface, he seems to absolutely despise philosophy. So today, we're going to deconstruct this paradox and figure out what Rumi was actually trying to teach us about human reasoning.
To solve this philosophical detective story, we'll follow his trail step by step, starting with the great Rumi Paradox, looking at the wooden leg of reasoning, his shift from philosophy to wisdom, the three pillars of true wisdom, and finally asking, was Rumi actually the first existentialist?
So, starting with part 1, the great Rumi Paradox, a master of ontology who rejected philosophy. We really need to set up this glaring contradiction at the heart of the Masnavi, a text that is entirely celebrated for its deep theories on the very nature of existence.
Rumi was notoriously hostile toward philosophers. He absolutely roasted them. He framed them as arrogant, trapped in endless skepticism, and just utterly blind to metaphysical miracles. He literally wrote, "The philosopher who denies the moaning pillar is a stranger to the senses of the saints." Rumi felt that these rigid thinkers were so obsessed with the physical world that they had become totally numb to the spiritual one, missing out on these profound, transcendent realities.
It's total intellectual whiplash, right? On one hand, modern academics praise Rumi for his deep ontology, his complex epistemology, his theories on how we actually acquire knowledge, and his sharp phenomenological awareness of how we experience the world. But on the other hand, in his actual texts, his explicit stance is super aggressive. He claims the reasoning leg is wooden. He relentlessly mocks philosophers and firmly rejects abstract logic. It just doesn't seem to add up.
Moving to part 2, the wooden leg of reasoning. Let's define the real target of Rumi's critique. Because to resolve this paradox, we have to pinpoint exactly who he was attacking back in the 13th century.
Context is everything here. Rumi wasn't attacking all thought. He was specifically dismantling the Masha tradition. These were the strict Aristotelian rationalists of his region. These thinkers relied entirely on abstract deductive logic, strict mechanical causality, and justify physical senses. For Rumi, this wasn't a pursuit of truth, it was a prison. He believed this purely mechanical worldview actually blinded people to the ultimate cause of causes, because it trapped them in a very narrow worldly logic.
He basically divided human reasoning into two distinct camps. First, there's what he called the partial intellect. This is that calculative, deductive, instrumental reason, the kind of reason that's completely trapped by the physical senses. Contrast that with the universal intellect, which is divine, holistic, and connected to absolute truth. Rumi famously criticized the partial intellect, mocking it as a flimsy wooden leg. Why? Because a wooden leg simply lacks the agility to jump to the holistic, transcendent awareness of the universal intellect. You just can't climb to spiritual heights on a peg leg of pure calculation.
Which brings us to part 3, from philosophy to wisdom, a strategic lexical shift. So, how did he rescue true thought from the rigid rationalist without sounding like a total hypocrite?
Well, he essentially abandoned the toxic word philosophy entirely, replacing it with hikmat, or wisdom. By doing this, he created a strict boundary between worldly, doubt-inducing calculations and liberating spiritual truth. Worldly wisdom is superficial, it's ego-driven, and honestly, it only multiplies your doubt. But spiritual wisdom, true hikmah, is intuitive and actually elevates human existence. He wasn't rejecting the pursuit of truth at all. He was just refusing to use a word that had been totally corrupted by the strict logicians of his day.
Now for part 4, the three pillars of true wisdom. This is Rumi's reconstructed existential framework. Once he cleared away that rigid logic, what did he actually put in its place?
It turns out Rumi didn't hate philosophy, he just brilliantly redefined it. He built this incredible, dynamic architecture for understanding the universe around three main ideas: knowledge as becoming, dialectical intuition, and the mirror soul.
First up, Pillar 1, becoming. Rumi argued that philosophy isn't just some clinical autopsy of the mind, but a physical and spiritual transformation where the knower and the known actually unite. As he so beautifully put it, the eye of the bat cannot gaze upon the sun. You can't just intellectually study the sun from the dark. To truly know the light, you have to transform your very nature to withstand it.
Finding truth requires an internal metamorphosis, not just sitting back and taking notes.
Second is dialectical intuition. Rumi observed a universe in beautiful chaos. He said, "This world is all a war, if you look at the whole. Atom with atom, like faith with infidelity." He recognized that cosmic reality is a constant, dynamic flow of contradictions. Strict binary logic, where something is definitively just A or B, simply cannot process this incredible dance of opposites. To really grasp the universe, you need a dialectical intuition that actually embraces paradox.
And the third pillar is the mirror soul. Rather than cramming your mind with hypotheses, true wisdom requires emptying the ego so your soul can flawlessly reflect reality. Think about it. If your mind is cluttered with preconceived calculations and arrogance, it's like a dusty mirror. It will only ever show you a distorted version of reality. Rumi argues the ultimate philosophical act is literally just cleaning the mirror. He visualized this perfectly in his famous allegory of the painters. The story goes that two groups of painters are tasked with creating a masterpiece. The Roman painters represent the calculating philosophers. They relied on heavy external paints, tools, and superficial techniques. But the Chinese painters, they didn't use paint at all. They just spent their time polishing the wall until it was so perfectly reflective that it caught the brilliant colors of everything around it. True wisdom is a polished interior, not just an accumulation of external facts. Finally, part 5. Rumi, the first existentialist, bridging the 13th century with modern philosophy. When we look at all these pillars together, we're left with a truly fascinating historical question.
It is actually kind of mind-blowing when you map this out historically. Back in the 13th century, Rumi was critiquing instrumental, mechanical reason. It wasn't until the 18th century that Kant systematically limited pure reason. Then Nietzsche in the 19th century fiercely critiqued sterile rationalism, and Heidegger in the 20th century pioneered the phenomenology of being, focusing on our lived experience rather than abstract data. The heavy hitters of modern Western philosophy were essentially playing catch-up centuries later to what Rumi was already doing in the 1200s. No way, right?
So the paradox? It completely vanishes. Rumi wasn't anti-intellectual at all. True philosophy for him is an existential approach to being. It's about transcending mechanical calculation through love-driven intuition. He didn't want us to stop thinking. He wanted us to start experiencing reality directly without the heavy baggage of our own egos getting in the way.
In our modern data-obsessed world of endless mechanical logic, Rumi leaves us with a powerful, transformative question to ponder. If true philosophy is not about filling the mind with information but polishing the soul, what is reflecting in your mirror today? Are you hoarding facts like the Roman painters, or are you doing the hard work to clear the dust so you can clearly see the absolute truth? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating text with me in this explainer. Keep polishing that mirror and never stop seeking true wisdom.